Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. This episode of Attack on Titan was actually really good, but it was also very simple in many ways, both in animation but as well as story. This whole episode was just basically one gigantic conversation, and it ended up being one of my favorite episodes. It's especially rewarding to you as a viewer if you've recently seen or watched anything from season 1 all the way up to season 3. So let's just go ahead and jump right into the episode. But I want to mention real quick before we get into the video, I am holding a giveaway once my Twitter account reaches 1,500 followers, and as you can see, we're just a little bit over 700, so we're nearly there. If you're interested in what I have to say about anime news, or just want to converse with me over on Twitter, then go ahead, follow me at SeaTacticsYT. Now, let's get back to the video. So it starts off actually with a scene with John and this idealized perfect life that he had imagined for himself. And what I find most interesting is that he still imagines being with Mikasa, which is pretty cool because it shows that all from season 1 all the way up to this season, I guess his feelings really hasn't changed for her, which is really interesting if you think about it, because Mikasa for multiple seasons now and multiple years has just been chasing after Eren, and you see John here kind of not really doing the same thing, but just not giving up on Mikasa. Though I think it feels more healthy than, say, Mikasa and Eren, so that's pretty cool. I can't say that they're an actual real ship in this series. It kind of is one of those things where it's like, well, they could be, I think. But yeah, why not, I guess? Why not ship John and Mikasa? But what I like about this scene is that John is always constantly struggling to figure out what he wants to do. Does he want to stay back and take what is basically guaranteed to him, which is a really easy life with whoever he decides to be with, or go out and save the world and accept that everything outside of Paradis is awful and terrible and going to hell? Basically accepting genocide. Does he accept that in the face of, what is happiness? And is it happiness to ignore something that is outside of his world going terribly? Or is it up to him to go out there and fight because he has the opportunity to make a difference and possibly save the world? It's very interesting, and I really like this about John's character. It's really cool, and I think this episode in particular shines a real big spotlight on John's character and kind of starts to, or maybe has closed out the arc on John's character, much like how last episode did for Connie. So Armin, John, and Mikasa join Hange to talk and discuss about what they're going to do. Hange tells them that they've joined forces with Marley, and as well that Levi can't fight because he's too injured, which makes sense. The dude is missing multiple fingers. Also as well, everything including the military in terms of structure kind of stuff has been wiped out, so they really don't answer to anyone at this point because there's no established military. But Hange does need the power of the Nine Titans to make a difference in trying to take down and stop Eren. Speaking of, Mikasa agrees to actually go along with this plan with Hange to try and stop Eren because for her, she doesn't want Eren to face any more attacks, even though that she knows that he's doing this to protect the island. It's one of those things where Mikasa is still being optimistic when really I think at this point we're sort of past the point of optimism for Eren Yeager. I mean, the dude is literally enacting genocide, so I don't know if this is something that Mikasa should be feeling at this moment. I think if it were in my shoes, I would push past this and agree to kill Eren. And John brings up a really good question though. What happens even if they stop Eren? It's not like Marley's going to stop coming after them on Paradis Island, and Hange is like, well, it's going to stop them for a couple of years, and then John is like, well, we had a couple of years and we didn't come up with anything in return to try and better our situation. But Hange still she can't go along with genocide. From there we see this great scene where Hange recalls all of what she was thinking prior to this this, how all she wanted to do was run away and just survive and kind of skirt a lot of her responsibilities in a sense, which is, I think, something very brave for Hange to say, just not only in general, but as well to admit to her most trusted comrades in Mikasa, John, and Armin. And then we see something that has me a little bit worried. Knowing what happened in season 3, we see the ghostly images of Erwin, Petra, even Marco at one point, basically all of the people that have fallen throughout the past seasons and the history of Attack on Titan. And we see it happen when Hange starts talking, which I don't know if you remember, but this is a callback to season 3 where Erwin gives his speech before they do the big charge into the Beast Titan to try and, get Levi to take out the Beast Titan and salvage what is left of their kind of ruined plan. Seeing the ghostly images of all their dead comrades is something that Erwin saw before. He put his hand up in the air and we saw basically the same scene play out. So this has me worried that Hanji-san is going to die, and that is not what I want at all. That being said, we'll have to see if she dies and what her death would even be like before we could even decide, I guess. But even then, it's just I don't want anyone to die at this point. This season of Attack on Titan is already really sad already. I don't need more deaths. It's just gonna make me cry. But this is Attack on Titan after all. Then we get to the campfire scene, which is a little complicated, but this is probably maybe one of the most important moments in Attack on Titan as a whole. And the reason for it is because this whole scene, this whole sequence, whatever you want to call it, is basically just them talking and recapping the events that they need to be caught up on and hashing it out. That's it. And the reason why it's so important is because if they didn't do this, then when they go into a fight with Eren Yeager and all those not dwelling anymore, Wall Titans, they're not going to be able to trust one another. They're not going to be on a common ground and have a common goal. So this scene is very important for setting up that, but as well closing out a lot of character arcs and basically saying, yeah, this is the start of the end of Attack on Titan. It starts with Magath sort of being very accusatory of Paradis, and Hange kind of counters with Paradis really didn't want genocide. Even John brings up that it was Marley's Titans that they sent to Paradis in the first place. Though for Magath, him and Marley's worries of Paradis turned out to be very true. And John counters, if Eren's mom hadn't been eaten in the first place, he wouldn't have done any of this. But Magath, he counters with, if you want to talk about history, what about Eldia being the first to devastate Marley in the first place? And then Hange is just like, all right, let's stop talking about this. There's no point. And Hange brings up that they're actually trying to save Marley. It's not about history. There's no point of arguing over that. What's happening now, even though Magath and people on Marley's side are confused at these devils of Paradis Island, the point is that Paradis is trying to save Marley. They have no other choice than but to accept that help. So then we get another scene which mirrors season 1. Actually mirrors a conversation between Annie and Mikasa for season 1, and kind of turns out the same way as it did in season 1, which is something that is thematically really cool in my opinion. So Annie asks Mikasa really just all of them in general, if they can actually kill Eren, and Mikasa of course believes that there is another way. Of course she does. She's absolutely obsessed with Eren in a sense. But Annie still brings up that what happens? There's a possibility that you can't convince Eren. He, in the first place, said he was going to go through with this genocide. If a person like that considers genocide and goes through with it, you would think he would have thought about not doing it in the first place. So because of Mikasa's sort of unwillingness to cooperate a little bit in this conversation, Annie has doubts they will just end up fighting anyways, because why should Paradis or Annie trust Mikasa if they're not going to kill Eren? Which, they're right for wanting to kill Eren. In my opinion, yeah, you should, at this point, end Eren Yeager. He's past the point of no return. He is the ultimate evil of this series. Annie even says to Mikasa, you have probably not thought about anything more than your precious Eren Yeager. And Mikasa sees this as a way of like, oh, well, you just want me to die? So she brandishes her blade handles ready to fight Annie, and Annie, takes out her ring blade thing. I don't know what those things are called, but it's really cool. And then she puts out her hand. Annie understands how she feels because she as well wants to save her father. But I think the real kicker about this ending part to this Annie and Mikasa argument is that I think Mikasa proved Annie right. And the reason for that is Mikasa immediately was going to try and fight Annie, if not for Annie realizing like, hey, we do have a little bit of common ground here, and yeah, it's not good that you're reacting this way, but we'll come to it when we come to it. But Mikasa, on the other hand, she was ready to fight Annie. That to me shows that she's not very cooperative, and she still is following Eren and not making up a decision on her own. In other words, she's still trying to protect Eren. Though the scene does end with Hange preparing the stew, which is great. And I don't know if you guys have seen the illustration that came out for this episode. It shows Hange preparing the stew and trying to feed it to everyone to no avail. So I thought that was really funny. Also, if you look at that illustration, Hange is blushing at the Titanized peak, which that's really funny in my opinion. That's hilarious. And then we focus on Yelena, who for much of this, she really just tries to stir a bunch of stuff up here. Yelena, it's though actually revealed that she's not an Eldian. She wasn't even from an annexed nation. She made every single bit of that up. Yelena is actually just your run-of-the-mill Marleyan, and it seems like she had some sort of thing for Zeke, and she wanted to follow him. That's kind of it for Yelena. Though through this conversation with Yelena and her revealing this thing, she starts to, like I said, just stir up a bunch of stuff. So she starts to bring up everything. Yelena even brings up Marco, which ends up with Annie and Reiner talking about that, which I really love because Annie and Reiner reveal that, yeah, they are the people who basically killed Marco. And his last words were, "We haven't even tried to talk it out yet," which it gave me goosebumps. It's one of the most important lines, I think, in Attack on Titan, because at this point in the series, we're already near the end of it, but they haven't tried to talk it out yet. And even John says, yo, we haven't even done that yet. So Marco was right. So these final words from Marco turned out to be maybe some of the most important words that was ever spoken in Attack on Titan. And I love that. Marco is a gift that keeps on giving. It seems like he was such a forgettable character in season 1. He was just somebody that died, but it turned out that his character really set like this domino kind of effect happening throughout many of the characters in the series. It caused Reiner to have this split personality thing going on, which is really, really interesting part of his character. I talked a lot about that in a previous video if you want to go check that out. But it leads to this really pathetic, just really sad scene with Reiner, who doesn't want to be forgiven as he describes what they did to Marco and how he felt, how pathetic he feels he is. And John just, at some point, just starts to beat him up, starts to punch him in the face really hard. Like, his face turns out to be that of a bloody pulp by the end of this scene. And it gets so gruesome that Gabby jumps in and tries to stop John from punching and kicking at Reiner, and actually inadvertently kicks Gabby in the process, which to me was kind of a shocking moment. And it made me feel sympathetic for Gabby's character, which is, I think, really cool considering what she's done to, many characters throughout this season already. So Gabby says all they really wanted was acceptance and forgiveness, and just begs for forgiveness, begs for help. And I think one reason why I like this part so much is because it shows that Gabby is just a child. Like, at the end of the day, sure, she is a child soldier, but the most important part of that phrase is child. She doesn't want things to go badly for anybody. She's in some way, at least, still very innocent-minded, and it seems like she's very regretful of things that happened. And this eventually leads to just John wandering off in the forest until the next morning when they're woken up. But I will say, there's that funny moment where Levi wakes up and it's just like, why are they talking again? He just woke up and chose violence, Levi. But this leads into really the last part of this episode where John apologizes for hitting Gabby, which shows that even after Gabby killing Sasha, there is some forgiveness there. Whereas Reiner, killing Marco and then killing Eren's mother, it shows that there is still a lot of, I think, loyalty with John, but as well, a lot of hurt feelings between those two. I think it's kind of plain as day day when you look at these characters and you see like this almost want to just be friends, right? To not have this divide between them, this Marley Paradis divide, this war, this killing, and this fighting. You can see it through John's character and Reiner's and Annie's and all of them that they don't want to fight. They just want everyone to be accepted. They want to, they want everyone to be forgiven and for everyone to live happily. There's no point to keep on doing this. And I think that was beautifully delivered from everyone, and everyone's performance in this episode was honestly incredible. I am impressed by always the Japanese voice acting cast for Attack on Titan, but this episode especially is probably one of the best episodes in terms of just voice acting. Though not as all well as the Jaegerists have sadly taken over the harbor, and we see Flock. Who, by the way, who's giving Flock all these guns? Take the guns away. He can't keep getting away with this. So he has Azumabito, Kiyomi. He has Kiyomi captured. He's got the steam engines and the boats. He's got the dock completely secured because the Jaegerists have figured out, surprise, they're going to try to stop Eren. And all I'm going to say is, better not hurt Kiyomi. She is a precious individual. I don't know why I feel that way about her. She's really not. But with that being said, this episode of Attack on Titan, like I said, it wasn't the craziest episode in terms of action, just like last episode, but this episode was honestly really good and one of my favorites of actually this season and one of my favorites of the entire series, just because the fact that it's all of these characters that hated each other prior finally meeting together again after all is said and done, after all of the hate, after all the fighting, after all of the killing and death and tragedy and drama, politics, they're finally meeting to settle the score, to once and for all put that behind them, or maybe not in some instances, and moving forward and becoming at least comrades or something like that again. And when you think about it that way, yeah, it's kind of a really beautiful episode, very poetic, and a long time coming. I want to inform you all as well that at 50 channel members, I will be doing a One Piece series. So if you're interested in something like that, me talking about One Piece, then yeah, at 50 channel members, I'll do a series on One Piece if you want me to. With that out of the way though, if you enjoyed this video, please check out my other videos. This week I put out a video on Flock and as well Louise, which I think are fantastic and you'll love them. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.